Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show. We are back. Today is Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. Very excited to have these two young people on the show today. Old friends, amazing community advocates, amazing real estate advocates on the show. Gary Balanoff and Rose Kemp are here, and we're going to talk about Aura. We're going to talk about your key to Orlando real estate, the podcast that Aura has out that is Gary's baby, I think is what Rose described it as. And I love that. So welcome to the show, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ted. I just want to start off by saying one thing. For those of you viewers and listeners, right, that don't know what Aura is the Orlando Regional Realtor Association located here in Central Florida.
Very good. See, Rose, this is why I don't barely have to be here. You two can take over. I like it. I can have a sip of my coffee, quote unquote. All right, but we want to start with Gary because he hasn't been on the show before. So Gary's going to give us a little origin story so the audience can get to know him, and then he'll introduce Rose. All right, Gary, you're up. Tell us about you.
Sure. Well, thank you, Ted. I appreciate the chance to be on here and talk a little bit about Aura and our podcast because actually, I started in journalism and broadcasting, and I was a TV news reporter for Channel 6 here in town for 3 years. Basically, I did the first 9 space shuttle launches. So that was a long time ago. And then after that, I got into the real estate business. And for the past 3 years, we've been working on trying to put together a podcast. And not as fancy as yours, obviously, because you do a great job. I'm not kidding. I've seen your stuff. I'm a first-time participant, but a long-time listener. So thanks. Excellent. But what we were trying to do was put together a show that would highlight kind of the highlights of real estate and what people really need to know if they're thinking or contemplating or whatever, buying or selling or renting or investing. There are a lot of ways that people can participate in the real estate business. And unfortunately, there are as many opinions about real estate as there are human beings on the face of the planet. So we wanted to kind of consolidate it using the statistics, the information that we have, the background of a lot of really good, talented people to be able to give people a realistic perspective, because nobody should go out there unprepared. This is usually most people's biggest investment. And so we want to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So the podcast was an origin of that. And we've finally put that together. And of course, the very first one that we did was in February. And we all know what was happening towards the end of February when people were starting to go, there's this virus that's going about. And we were in a studio at that point and, had it professionally produced. And then March rolled around and everything was shut down. So we said, we're not going to put a pin in this balloon. We want to make sure it continues because people are still interested. That was the most fascinating thing about this whole last 6 months is people still want to buy and sell real estate and invest and do whatever it needs to be done to move. So
it's been busy,
keep it going and keep it online and so on. And we were able to do that with the help of some very talented people at the Realtors Association, with Rose pitching in and doing a couple of the podcasts herself. And, as you know, Ted, it's not the easiest thing in the world to put this thing together all the time, but it's worth it. And I hope people have gotten a good amount out of it. So I did want to introduce Rose because she's next year's chairman of the communications committee. We'll be heading up the podcast from this point forward. I might get in a few minutes here and there, but the main thing is that we have more talented people that are helping us and being able to put it together. So Rose, you can give your perspective on it too.
Welcome, Rose, and thank you for that, Gary. And I'm going to look up that old footage of you. I got to see it. Rose, welcome back.
Ted.
So happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you too. I'm trying to touch you, but I can't. I just want to say thank you, Gary, for your kind words. But also, Gary is like a key component to our communications committee at Aura. He's very passionate. He comes from a communications background, obviously incredibly talented and smart. And this was his baby, and it really was. I've been on the communications committee for 5 years, and Gary, about, I want to say a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, the only one that knew about podcasting and the importance of it was Ted Bogert. I kid you not. When did you start? He just celebrated his 800th show.
I did. Thank
So
you.
you started in what year, Ted?
2017.
Okay. Well, Gary was right behind you because in 2018, in our communications committee meetings, he started speaking about putting together a podcast. And, you have to go through rules and regulations and things like that. And of course, you have committees, and everybody on the committee is important. We value their perspectives and their opinions. And fast forward about a year and a half later, right before pre-COVID-19, we actually started. And what was interesting about it is we actually had programs, pre-prepared topics, right, Gary?
Right, exactly.
Pre-prepared topics that our task force
we could expand on, and guests that we could interview, and then all of a sudden it all changed.
Yeah.
It all changed. So just like everybody else out there, we suddenly had a pivot. And thanks to the wonderful team that we have, the volunteers, they're realtor members, we all come together and we have to look at things with a whole new perspective. Now we're doing Zoom. Now we're doing StreamYard. But also what we realized, this went hand in hand with the communication staff professionals as well, including our CEO, Cliff. We had meetings where we discussed, hey, is the information that we had planned relevant? Is it what our community needs to find out and hear about? And we just suddenly pivoted into, let's start making this every single month. We get together and we come up and we brainstorm ideas. So there's a group of professionals that are out there on the field, brokers, realtors, and affiliates. By the way, you're one of our affiliates, that we come together and come up with these ideas to make things, to give value to not only to our membership, but most importantly, we're trying to bring value with this podcast to our community members. It's advocacy for the consumers so that they're able to make the best decisions possible when it comes to their real estate journey. And that's why this podcast is so amazing and so important. It's an audio podcast. You can hear it anytime. You can share it. We actually have a page where you could go through and see the last, I think we did, what episode did we just complete? Episode 6?
6, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
That's
we've
awesome.
Yeah, we've gone through topics from hurricanes to buying a home in COVID-19 to renting homes. We just did a whole, our last podcast was about preparing your home for sale, because people really have gained their insecurities about the market. They're realizing the market's strong. We're moving forward with our plans. So we want to make sure that sellers are prepared. And if there's anything else, Gary, you want to add to that?
I want to ask you guys a question. Talk about why, especially that last topic, because I think it's on everyone in the real estate profession's mind that it is obviously a lower inventory than we'd like to see. So reaching out to the sellers who are on the fence and talking about staging is so important. So talking about so give us a little bit about that. I had some people before we went live who are like, I'm on the fence. So this is not original idea from me. I'm on the fence. I want to know more about it. So that was going to be a question I asked anyway. So talk a little bit about that if you can, what the last podcast went into.
Well, one of the things that I think people have to remember is, and I'm very much a believer in using research and numbers to be able to back up what we talk about. So every podcast, we talk about how many sales there have been, how many listings there are, the disparity sometimes between the two, because we now, according to last month's statistics, we have a 15-year low in total single-family homes for sale. Now, that's kind of ridiculous because 15 years ago, remember what was going on then. 2005 was the high point of that real estate boom. And so things were only staying on the market for a month and a half at the most. And so they were flying off the shelves. And that's what happens when you have low inventory and tremendous demand. The same thing has happened, only as you've noticed lately, the interest rates are even lower than they were at that time. So, but prices have gone up. So in many cases, people say, well, I don't know if I can afford a $300,000 home or a 400,000, or what are we talking about here? And so you work it out, and you have a reputable lender. Our affiliates, we have several really good affiliates who are mortgage lenders and so on.
As yourself, Ted. As yourself.
Just waving hi, just so you know.
Exactly like Ted. We might as well promote Ted on his own show. So
no, it's all right.
Yes.
The show is about you. It's about you, not about me.
No, but that's what's happening right now. And so getting the facts out there are important to people. So we need to make sure that they're just up to date with all of this, because it still can be a good time to buy. It's certainly a good time to sell. If anybody's interested in selling, contact your local realtor, because there are tremendous opportunities. But in light of what Rose was saying about our show on preparing your house, there's only 3 things that either sell a house or prevent a house from selling: price, location, and condition. And I have to tell people, you can't do much about your location unless you want to jack up the house and move it to a lot. And it's hard to find a lot. So you might want to just stay where you are and sell what you've got. But price and condition can do something, so you are in control as the owner of determining. And we are the ones who advise our clients and customers about how to be able to prepare it. And there, again, affiliates who are we had a stager on, and you can do all kinds of things with that. But whatever you do, if it looks nice and you've taken good care to make sure that you've repaired the roof, have good plumbing, have good systems so that people can turn key and move in and then be happy, that's the ideal situation. And unfortunately, one of the only drawbacks now is that people think, well, it's a seller's market, so I don't have to do any of that stuff. It's an as-is contract. I don't have to fix anything. Well, you will find yourself, unfortunately, waiting a long time, even in a seller's market, if you got a bad roof and bad plumbing and something that can't be insured or mortgaged.
I agree. So the last podcast, I had the privilege of working on it, actually. So we have a different realtor on every podcast. I happened to do the last one. And at the end of the day, a seller, show me a seller that doesn't want to make top dollar on their home.
Right.
Is there a seller out there that does not want to make top dollar in their home? So as an experienced realtor, somebody who understands the market, our job, right, with the consumers, to help them understand what are those little things. It could be, our last stager said it best on the podcast, which was, she called it money in a can. What's money in a can? Paint.
That's right.
It just takes a little paint work to make a room look bigger. Make sure your front door opens up. Make sure that the front elevation of the home is amazing, because in our MLS, you must use a primary photo, which is required and regulated to be the front of the home. So if you have an amazing backyard, that's great. If your front yard looks crappy, I'm sorry, the first thing they're going to see, and we're all very visual, especially now post-COVID, our buyers are going online to look at properties before they ever walk in. They're doing the virtual tours, because we're trying to be safe, obviously. So we don't have those lookers anymore. So if you don't have certain things completed that are visual, that front elevation picture, you're really going to end up with a lot of days on the market before they find out that you're fabulous. And by then you've lost value. Because now people are wondering, what's wrong with your house? Why has it been on the market for 150 days? It just happened to be that there was a big tree that they didn't trim right in front of the door, and it made the house look funny.
And people just don't think about that. They don't know. And so it's great that you're informing them, which is why this podcast is so powerful, because I think the consumer really didn't have a place, or didn't know an easy place for them to find information. And we all know that people respond to video. They love video. They love audio. They love podcasts. Oh my God. They absolutely love. So we have 2 questions. I'll ask Sarah's first, and then I had a question before we went live. Sarah asked about, is there any plan to, and this isn't a general Aura question, so if you have to refer it to Aura, that's fine. Is there any plan to bring on anything about commercial real estate on the podcast or otherwise?
Yes, that's one of the things that we just have had crammed so much into the first 6 that basically we're trying to expand the reach, and certainly commercial is one of the things that before the end of the year we're going to have on there. We're discussing topics for this. So if you want to put in that as a suggestion for this next one to be included, I wouldn't have any objection to that. We try to get a couple of different sets of questions for different people and so on. So you can have a commercial segment and still have a residential segment or a property management segment or whatever. So that's one of the beauties of this, because it does lend itself towards providing a range of activities. But you're right. I mean, commercial is going to be something we're going to be addressing.
I hear more and more of it. So I think that's why the question keeps coming up.
I think,
so Rose,
Sarah,
go ahead.
I think, Sarah, that because commercial is so relevant, especially going through the pandemic and seeing some businesses unfortunately have to shut down, things like that happening. Absolutely, I am certain that you will hear about anything that we find that is pertinent to commercial, because we're trying to stay relevant. And like Gary said, that's the beauty of the podcast. It's about just pivoting, getting ideas and what's important to you. And even though the podcast is directed towards consumers, right, to educate consumers, it's also directed to help our realtors and our membership, because sometimes our own realtors need to realize their own value, number one. Number two, preparing your home for sale, the COVID, any of those subject lines, you can actually, as a realtor or even as a mortgage lender or a title company, you can take that audio podcast, share it with your people, your database, and that's a service you're providing.
Excellent,
and that's an amazing component that I really want everybody to get out there, that it's not just Aura's putting it out for consumers, it's Aura's putting it out for our affiliates to also understand, in our membership, right, to also understand their value and make it easier on them. Sometimes when I'm explaining something to a seller, I might leave a point out, but if I share with them that podcast, I know that it's going to be a guest that's an expert in that area, and all of the great information will be there without me having to say a word.
The sharing is so important. So I put Aura's website there, and obviously we've tagged you and Aura in the post. So people, you should be able to find whatever you're looking for there, but we'll talk more about that at the end. I have to tell you, the number one question we got prior to going live came from a lot of consumers, and consumers wanted to know, especially on the selling side, they're getting bombarded. I want to list your house. I want to list your house. I want to list your house. They want to know if you can give some maybe insights, even though it's a personal choice, on what they should look for when they're choosing the right real estate professional.
I'll let Rose answer this one. I got my own take, but I want to hear Rose's. So.
You want me to go first?
Go first.
Ladies first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, let me give you my feedback. First of all, I just want to say that it's very important that you pick a realtor. Number one, you work with a realtor. And there's a difference. So make sure that they are a realtor that holds an oath, right? And holds a responsibility to you in showing due diligence and caring and the golden rule. So that's the importance of having a realtor. Number two, find someone that's experienced, whether they're experienced in real estate, maybe your area, or maybe somebody that you've worked with before that did a great job for you. Reach out to them. And I also feel that when you're interviewing your realtor, because you're both interviewing each other, make sure that you have a connection, that you feel comfortable with them, that you can trust them. It's not just, Ted sent you to me to do real estate because he thinks I'm great. Maybe we need to get to know each other and make sure that you're comfortable with me, that you can talk to me. And that, because as a realtor, we do become a part of your life and we help you in so many ways. It's your livelihood. It's your biggest move, your biggest purchase. I think being comfortable, if you speak a certain language and you feel more comfortable, doing business in that language, find a realtor that connects with you, that you feel good with, and also that has a track record that actually sells houses, actually lists houses. That's important too. So
great. I love it. How about you, Gary?
Well, I think it's well said. I mean, I would agree with all of that. The two things that I think most consumers want from their realtor are the ability to communicate well with them and the ability to negotiate for them, because those are the two things we provide. I mean, we all have access to the MLS, the multiple listing service, and so we can find a house. Everybody can do that fairly easily, but communication styles differ, and not everybody is going to be adept at trying to put somebody's needs into their own basket and try to figure out a way of meeting that need. So if you can find somebody, that's one of the series of questions that I would ask is about what is your communication style? How often are you going to communicate with me? What are you going to have to research to be able to make sure that I can make good decisions? And what do you do to negotiate? And it's kind of funny because in many cases, people will say, well, can you give me a break on your commission? And we're not here to talk about commission amounts, but I can say this. If you go to somebody and they say, oh yeah, whatever you want to pay is fine, I would hesitate to work with anybody that says that, because here's the thing. If you can't even keep your own money in your pocket, how hard are you going to work to keep my money in my pocket? So
I love that.
It's a concern. And, so I tell people, look, good for asking, good for you. You want a coupon, right? Is that what you want? I understand. Good for you for asking. I'd almost be wondering why you didn't ask me. But here's the thing. There are a certain set of built-in things that I have to do and that cost me money. And it's not that I'm passing along to you. What I think the consumer has to realize is there are very few things that you pay nothing for until you have complete and total success.
Yes.
I mean, the patient dies, the doctor still gets paid. That's complete failure, and yet they still get paid. The hospital still gets paid. Attorney loses.
I love my weatherman, but what about the weather people too?
The attorney loses the case and still gets paid. So, I mean, that's complete failure, and you're still paying a bill. So with a realtor, if you hire us, any of us, to do the job, and we don't do it, what do we get paid? The big zero.
Zero.
We are making this work.
Well, and I think you guys hit on it. One of the biggest things that you both said, and I think it resonates with the consumer, is it's a relationship business. You have to feel good about the relationship. You have to feel like you can trust them, because this is such a big deal. And trust me, if you're not feeling good about it, don't force it.
Right.
Ask the right questions. You should never, ever, ever feel afraid to ask your realtor a question. And if you're in that position where you feel like you're bothering them all the time, then maybe you are bothering them all the time, and you want to figure out who you won't feel that way with. So build the rapport, build the relationship, like Gary and Rose said, and make it, because you're going to, most of the time, you're going to refer them business later. You're going to do business with them later if you've established that wonderful relationship up front. All right, we had go ahead.
Can I add?
Please.
A lot of the people out there are in business for themselves, and a lot of the clients we work with have their own businesses. And so sometimes people don't even realize, but this is a mutual admiration society. So we're here not only to get referrals from you, but give referrals out to other people that might be able to help you. So what realtors do, I think, more than anything else, is we are networked within the community, so that when people say, you don't know a painter, do you? Do I know a painter? Yes, I know a great painter. Yeah, I know a great plumber. I know, all these services that people ask for. We have a choice as consumers. We can either go to Google and pull up, and I haven't checked today, but I would guess that there are probably 10,000 listings on Google if you type in Orlando area plumber, and some of them will be good, some of them not so much. But if you can get a good referral to somebody from that, that's as much of a benefit as anything. So sometimes it's not even about selling the house. So we are resources for people in other areas too.
I agree with that. And I want to add one more thing, just because Obviously we're on a podcast now, a very successful podcast with the TED Show, Freedom Mortgage, the TED Show. But also, we are in an era of technology, and especially we were already in an era of technology. And then post-COVID, it's just exploded because obviously we're being safe, right? But I just want to say, I've been in business 20 years. I don't care how many markets we've been in, how many changes, how advanced technology became. I mean, I went from MapQuest to GPS to a smartphone to I could see my emails on the phone without having to get home. Now I could sign documents. I mean, it's amazing that we're working at the speed of lightning, right? And we are technology based. There's one thing that will never change, and that is human touch care. You can go on any website and find a valuation, but that computer go into your home and see your upgrades? Do they understand what you're going through? The timeline? Did they sit down with you and hold your hand through that change? Sometimes it's an upgrade, a downsize. Sometimes it's completely unwanted. And that's what realtors do for you. And so to me, the beauty of technology, right, is that we can have an audio podcast to reach out to tons of people, have an amazing platform, right, to get that information out. But at the end of the day, the consumer, most importantly, needs to understand that having a realtor be their partner, by their side, their friend, right, that is priceless. And there is no technology, no computer that can ever or will ever take that away.
So I agree 100%. The technology is wonderful, but you still need a human relationship because you can't talk to the computer. I mean, I guess you could, but it's not going to be able to talk back. Not yet, anyway.
I agree.
All right. So if you're not motivated to go listen to the first 6 podcasts, I don't know what's going to motivate you, because I'm motivated. I want to hear more. So tell us how they can find the podcast and how they can find each of you. And if they want more information about the Orlando Regional Realtor Association, how can they do that?
It's a pretty easy fix. You can go to orlandorealtors.com and find all the information there. You can find market statistics. You can find the podcast. There's a little button. It's just one button up on the top right-hand corner, and you click on podcast and you'll get the whole list. You can get market statistics are very helpful because, again, we talked about, and Rose talked about, statistical information and how to get accurate, up to date. We put it out once a month for monthly statistics, but we also have what's called a Monday morning quarterback that once a week we come out with the most recent statistics. So you can see the trend line as it's going. And, especially for people who are, nuclear physicists, they don't want to hear our opinion. They want to see the facts. And I get that. I mean, some people are more wired that way. Some people are more wired to, well, Gary, what do you think? Would you buy this house? And I have to tell them, well, unfortunately, I'm not buying the house. This is your house to buy. So, but you can find all the statistics that you could possibly want over the last 10 years, basically, and get those trend lines that might help you in determining, is this the best time to be able to go ahead and put my house on the market? What can I find out there? You can even find every realtor in the system. And I think we're up to, what is it now, 17,000 members?
It's amazing.
So it's tremendous. I mean, in the state of Florida, we now have 190,000. Rose and I were in on the Florida Realtor Directors meetings, and 190,000 actual realtors in the state of Florida with 21 million people. It's one for every 112. So if you throw a rock, you'll hit a realtor.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Please
All
don't
right. Take us out, Rose.
So the podcast does have, like Gary had mentioned earlier, I just want to piggyback on that the podcast does also include market statistics that we pull. It's every third Tuesday of every month. We were having it every second. We changed it to every third because that way we have the statistics in order to be able to share that. So if you're somebody that doesn't want to read, you just want to hear it, you want all of it in a nutshell, good information, entertaining, great realtor speaking to you, and the market statistics, then the podcast is excellent. And I also just want to say that the Orlando Regional Realtors Association, the consumers page, when you go onto the website and you find the consumer section. It is brilliant, helpful. If you're thinking about embarking on a real estate journey, no matter what it is, seek us out. We are like the Realtor Mother Hub. Like, we have tools for you. And of course, you can always reach Gary or myself. We're both on social media. We're both on Facebook and our Instagrams. And if you have any questions and we can help you in any way, point the finger, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for having us here too.
I am so thankful. I learn something all the time, and then most of the time, though, I'm a little bit jaded. I'm like, I'm not going to learn anything. I learned something. It's awesome. So Orlando Regional, what?
I have one question for you, Ted.
Sure.
So I have one question for you. Ted's in the hot seat. Ted, you have been an affiliate for a couple of years. You're obviously with Freedom Mortgage. Tell me why you find value in Aura and why you are an affiliate of Aura.
Fantastic question. So my favorite thing about Aura is relationships, which is what all of our businesses are built on. And so, like any organization, the relationships are most important, but the stuff behind the relationships, all the data you all talked about, the referral source opportunities, the ability to work in our community, because Aura does so much for our community on top of the regular real estate stuff. I just find that start to finish, the organization itself and the people that run it and work in it and work with it are bar none the best. So it's just a continual source of resources and information and fantastic relationships for me.
Thank you.
Our basic thing is don't go it alone. Ask an expert, and that's what everybody's there for, is to be able to help people get down the journey.
We are a family. We truly are. We're the Aura family. We're the Realtor family. And I think most importantly, I'd like to make sure that all of our viewers understand that realtors really do make a difference, and we really are super involved in the community, and we really do help make some of the biggest decisions in your life. So be smart.
Yeah, reach out. Rose Kemp, Gary Balanoff, Orlando Regional Realtor Association, your Key to Orlando Real Estate podcast. Thank you guys for being on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Have a great one. We'll see you back tomorrow.
I'll send you the link so you can post them, Ted.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks.
Big hugs, big love. We'll see you